Welcome back. It's Wednesday, and you know what time it is. It is time for the Women's Lounge. In today's episode, why DEI isn't dead. It's evolving. Today, my guest is Thomas Lopez with Multiracial Americans of Southern California. I'm your host, Emiliana Cuereta. If you're listening at work, make sure to get you a second cup of coffee because it's going to get real in here. Good morning, Thomas.
Morning, Emiliana. Great to be here.
Oh, thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the work.
I am Thomas Lopez. I am a board member of Multiracial Americans in Southern California. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based here in Los Angeles. We began back in 1986 when we first started the meeting. Been incorporated since 1990, and our purpose is to foster and promote multiracial identity and multiracial issues, raise awareness in the community of multiracial people and the things that we are facing. We're just trying to build that community for mixed race people.
What a time to be doing this. I'm right there with you. What do you think has changed from 1986 to now? I mean, the decades and the difference of how multiracial identity is seen?
Yeah, certainly. So multiracial people have been able to create more of a conversation, bring multiracial people out from the fringes of society, sometimes literally isolated communities, to try to be the center or the nexus, as I would call it, of race relations. We are not the fringe. We are people actually literally coming together into a single person. And so I think we've been part of that conversation. We succeeded in changing federal standards in the U.S. to allow people to mark off more than one race on forms like the census and in other forms. And so now we're actually able to collect real data about mixed race people that didn't really exist before.
That's grateful. And I also think that it's important that folks feel that they belong in whatever identity they have. What do you think is the most important thing we should be advocating currently with the current administration, the Trump administration, to focus this dismantling DEI initiatives as we know them?
Well, in the multiracial community, we can remind people of how we are still one community. If an individual can take some very disparate racial identities and force them into a singular individual identity that is also healthy, we're not. I apologize. As mixed race people, we are healthy, normal people. If an individual can do that for themselves, then I believe society could do that as well. If they just learn and listen to how mixed race people do it, and we incorporate that and extend that in a way that our society at large should do that, then maybe mixed race people would be that guy or that long of how our society is formed.
Yes, we like that. Our society as a whole should be getting along. I want to talk a little bit about how erasing the programs that we have seen and you just talked about, dismantling these programs, we should push back.
Sure. So mixed race people, even though it is mixed race, we have much in common with the language. Right? Everybody should be able to fully express themselves and who they are, what they are. People should be free to choose. Whatever that choice is, you should be able to bring your full self to wherever you're at. If you're in the workplace, if you're at school, if you're out on the street or on a community event, you want to be who you are and be able to identify who you are and not be forced to hide yourself. In some ways, it's similar to living in the closet and the experience that the LGBT community has gone through, and they've been trying to live it back on and living in full selves out loud. It's the same way for mixed race people too. By dismantling DEI, you're forcing people to really ignore part of who they are, and that's not healthy. It's not good for it.
Absolutely. I call it belonging instead of fitting in. So we want to make sure that folks belong. So I think also having clear identity and not, for example, with a name like Indiana, right? They're like, what? So they want to say Emily. I'm like, no, Indiana, because I'm really clear on what my identity is. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're seeing on the ground in the sense of the community, workplace, or schools. Do you think that institutions, people, communities are actually following through with that DEI vision?
That's a really great question because it actually came up just a few days ago for me. I was in a grant writing workshop and they were talking about like DEI statements. That was part of the grant application. And one of the things that was pointed out to me was, even though we might be seeing a lot of executive orders changing, the laws themselves have not changed. There has not been a change in law. So whatever you were doing in the past, last year, 6 months ago, that's still legal. Yeah, so whatever you were doing, don't stop. There's no reason to stop. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep staying true to yourself, whatever your mission is, wherever you're at. If you're in a nonprofit space or education, whatever, don't just surrender right before you've even, put up a fight, so to speak. But that's the point, that the laws haven't changed. What you're doing is still legal. It's just one group's or one person even opinion, in the context of ideas that are out there. If you stay true to yourself and what you're doing right now, it is still positive and you believe in it, then keep doing it. And there's no reason why you shouldn't do that.
Absolutely. And I think we forget it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is what has made this country, right? I always say, I'm going to get political here. If it wasn't for immigrant women, these folks wouldn't even have wives. If we look at who their partners are, it's diversity. When we look at it, it was for us women that benefited because we were now being looked at for positions that we weren't before. So I agree with you. Keep doing what you're doing. In fact, on my end, do more. So I want to talk about advocacy, and I want to talk about fighting back collectively. How do we make sure that we are firm, that we do what we're doing as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion is concerned? But how do we let people know to continue to advocate for it, to not fall into this trap? So
there are many strategies that we've done, and there's probably multiple answers to this because DEI expresses itself. That's a very challenging term, but it expresses itself in different ways in the workplace, in academia, in an office space, etc. So I don't think there's one size fits all. The answer to this, you have to kind of look at each of those segments, if you will. I've come up with a unique strategy for each of those.
Of education, because they're dismantling that too.
If you look, just look at data. All right, I'm actually an engineer by trade. I'm a very data-driven person. Okay, and if you just look at the numbers, you can always see that there is disparity out there. The best way to eliminate the bias out there is to create that equality, eliminate the context in which these racial categories exist. And that's how you dispel them. And you do that by creating that equity, that equality. All right. If you looked at the data, you just can't argue with the data. Across the board, you see people of color are just not achieving the same levels. And that can't just be random. That can't just be an accident. There are things that are at work, and these programs seek to create that. It's systematic racism. It's right there. I don't see how you can deny it. And that's why relying on data is really important. You continue to collect good data, which is why done so much work on the census and things like that.
Absolutely. I do think that they are looking at the data, and this is why I'm pushing back. And the data shows that we have a bigger amount of voters. We have more people of color in this country than we want to believe, right? So I do think that they are looking at the data, and I do think that at some point it scares them too.
Yeah, so different kinds of data. Yes, demographics absolutely are changing. There are trends. What we're seeing in the community as far as population is not being reflected. There should be equal representation of people at different levels of academia, different levels of the government, different levels of businesses. And you see that what's happening in these statements is not matching what is happening in society as far as demographics, et cetera. And so that's the inequality. That's the inequality. And
It's representation.
yes, absolutely.
As for us, it's like representation matters. We're not represented.
Well, before you can even aspire, for example, to be president of the United States, CEO of that company, you have to be able to see yourself in that position. You have to envision that. And when you look at what the government looks like, what business looks like, see yourself there, it becomes really hard to want to even aspire to that sort of thing. So representation absolutely matters.
I think representation and support, right? Because I think what we saw in academia when you look at the dismantling of awareness on education, when you look at who they asked to sit down from Columbia University to Harvard and to UCLA, it was really eye-opening for me that it was women of color, right? But also then supporting it, right? It makes no sense to say, okay, this is the best person for the job, yes, but how is it represented along the pipeline, not just in here?
Like, why is it always, if it's a woman of color or a person of color, that will, that's a DEI hire. They do not work qualified for that. But if it's not a person or woman of color, then it's, they got there by the merit.
Absolutely. Can you talk to me about the color conversation?
Yeah, so that was a program particularly for parent education on how to raise mixed race children. And also engaging dialogue. So it's all about conversation. It's not just lecturing or everything like that. It's people really engaging in the conversation. And that basically stems from the fact, this is very particular for mixed race people, is what makes mixed race families unique is that oftentimes the parents have no clue what it is like to be mixed race. They grow up mixed race. Their children are having a very different experience from their parents. And so all right, how do we break the cycle and make things better for the mixed race children? Well, we need to talk to their parents, but they need to understand what their children are going through. And so that's where that program began.
Researched it and when I went into our school, but because I do think that we're at a time where we need to have these conversations with our kids, even it's more imperative as we look at what is happening on the streets with ICE, what is happening in DEI. And so, for example, I've got two teenagers and, one is like super, super proud of being Latino.
I have teenagers, just like that too.
So going through that conversation, and this is what is happening on the ground. And so I think that the color conversation I thought was like, you can make it like, wait, this already exists. We should be talking about that, one, with our kids, with our educators, and definitely with parents.
We recently did a program with a local, it was a private school, but they have a lot of diverse families. And they asked us to come in and do an in-service for their teachers to try, attune the teachers to the mixed race experience. But when the parents found out that the school was putting on this program for the teachers. They said, can you expand that? Shouldn't have a second program or a second track for the parents too? It was yeah, sure. So we just sort of grew the program and it became a parent-teacher program. It wasn't just for the school anymore. So I hope more schools can do something like that. That's maybe the way to bring it in. Maybe parents aren't searching or they can't find us, but the schools do.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, tied into the education of the child and the parent.
Absolutely. I think one of the pre-questions you asked was what will we say to the future?
Yeah.
Right, for the next generation.
What is
And
it?
I had to think about that for a while. And then I don't know, when I look at some of my kids and what they're saying, it occurred to me, we should just be listening to them first. What are they experiencing? What do they care about? Because after all, they're inheriting this world that we're giving them. So for the future generations, we should be listening to them and then create opportunities for them or platforms for them to speak their minds, to share what they have to say, and learn to put into words what they're feeling.
Absolutely. I think they put into words what they're feeling. Sometimes, I'm going to say teenagers, even adults, won't tell you what they're really feeling, right? And I'm really a non-mind reader. Tell me, oh, okay, that's where we're headed. So I do think that before kids,
they're not dumb. They feel things deeply. They do care, but they just don't know how to express it. And so if we can make those opportunities for them, then they will tell us what they want to do next. And then we can hopefully mentor them and create what they think of as equity. What did they consider equity? Not by our definition, but theirs, since they are the ones that are going to, like I said, inherit this birth. So create those opportunities for the youth today.
definitely. And I would say create opportunities for that equity and create those opportunities to have them lead, right? I think that a lot know better. Like our kids have had a president, kids have had a VP that's a woman, they know better.
My daughter, I think it's a Gen Z thing. She said to me, we're tired of living through world-changing events.
Freaking news.
I know, 9/11, a pandemic, the first black president, all of January 6th. Like, is life ever going to become normal?
Right?
This is the new normal. Yes, give them a chance. Give them a chance to fail, too.
Yes.
You learn so much from your failures. So long as you learn from it and you pick up that you're trying to get better and you don't just sink into defeat and depression because the first thing you tried didn't work on the first try.
Absolutely.
Those are all great things. Social media, unfortunately, is always like a constant light on young people that, any state of failure, it lasts forever. I think we're maybe a generation, or I'm in the generation where if I goofed up or did something wrong, it was sort of forgotten or ignored, and I could get past it and grow from it and not do that again. I almost feel a little sorry for the young people today that they don't have an opportunity to really make mistakes.
I always talk about being kind and gentle, right? To yourself as everything's out on social media. I think by others, not diversity, equity, inclusion, it's also diversity of thought, right? And I think that a lot of folks, when they think of DEI, think of what box is it, right? And thinking about it's also diversity of thought. Oh, I didn't think they could be done that, but let's see if they can. So I think that's part of it. I'm going to wrap it up here. Your whole, for this next generation, to continue with the DEI, to not fall back into the shadows, to not fall into the thought that DEI is not good for society.
I mean, our society is diversifying. History has shown that diversity is our strength. Studies have shown in business that diverse companies with diverse leaders, do better in a market. And it is because, I think for those exact reasons that just mentioned, that diversity of representation, but also the diversity of thought. As far as the youth of today, because the youth are so diverse, And that is the future. And if we don't respect it, honor it, and foster it, then we as a nation are going to lose out. I think of, maybe somewhere in that group of kids, the people of color is the next Einstein, the next president, the next visionary, someone that's really just going to move society forward. Next time, there's people out there, all kinds of talents, abilities, and needs. But if we don't give them the opportunity, we don't recognize it, then that's an opportunity lost. We all lose, our nation loses, the world loses. It's just such a waste. There's all that talent out there, it's a waste. So we should create opportunities for everyone to live to the fullest, to get the most of whatever gifts they're given. And we do that, then we'll all benefit. It's not to be something to be feared. It's to be something to be cherished and nurtured and promoted.
Great. So with that, I'm going to say diversity, equity, and inclusion is not dead. It is your superpower. So your identity, lean into it. It is your superpower. We need diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you, Thomas, for joining me today and talking through this and also looking at just how it has evolved. From 1986 to 2025, that's decades of work. We're out. Thank you for joining me this Wednesday. If you're joining me at work, lean in. It's about to get real. If you're at home, it's Wind Down Wednesday.